I have dreaded making this video, and I've finally stopped crying. So here it is. I have decided to withdraw all of my MCAS applications. So that's all of my MD applications as well as my MD PhD applications.
I just graduated residency and I'm quitting medicine, at least for now. I've gotten such mixed reactions about this. Some people hate the idea. They think it's ridiculous to take any time for yourself because in this field, you're taught to give everything when you're in training. So work becomes your whole life. The medical field attracts a lot of overachievers, also a lot of ego. I'm honestly just burned out by the politics of a system that rewards cutthroat ego more than it rewards honest hard work. And yes, I know it's better as an attending, but I've gone straight from grade school to university to med school to internship to residency. I've literally never taken a break.
I am a senior at Indiana University and I study biology, and I've been on the pre-med path for the past 3 years. And this summer I took my MCAT, did well, and ultimately decided to not apply to med school. And now I am in that phase where figuring out what to do with my life because I have no idea what I want to do post-grad. But I know to not go to med school right now. So yeah. But since I made the decision, I've been doing a bunch of networking, and for once, I actually have so much free time that I don't know what to do with myself, and I don't know what to do with my life. Anyone else?
I just want to remind people that there are so many jobs in this world that do good and so many jobs that impact patients in healthcare and medicine. And honestly, the people who are impacting patients the most in this healthcare system sometimes aren't even physicians. Your job and your career is such a personal decision that it should not be impacted by this moral cloak that a lot of people in medicine wear. And people talk about medical training like it's a scarce resource, which I totally understand as well. But sometimes we need people with that clinical experience impacting other parts of the healthcare system too. I don't know, this is just a perspective that I have, and I hope that more people continue to have it and continue to feel like they can have a very diverse and interesting career. It doesn't necessarily need to be one-tracked.
I'm graduating medical school as someone that doesn't want to be a doctor anymore, and I fully think that it's impossible to regret getting a medical degree. Would I do it again? Absolutely not. But do I regret it? No, it's one of the biggest accomplishments of my life, and before you panic, I'm going into public health, so even though I'm not going to be a practicing doctor, I'm going to put my medical degree into practice somewhere non-clinical. So if you think that you may regret going into medical school, you won't. Even if the path is hard and blurry and you're not sure where it's going to lead to, you'll figure it out. If you love healthcare, if you love science, there's always a place for you after a medical degree.
Let's talk about why I decided not to go to med school as a student who spent literally all of my life thinking I was going to be a doctor. I hope anybody watching this who's planning to go to med school or wants to be a doctor isn't watching this and taking this as like a deterrent from the field that you're passionate about. I just feel like people don't talk about the challenges that you face even as a pre-med student before you even get to the med school and the residency level that make it really, really difficult to pursue a career in medicine. For me, there was 4 main reasons why I decided that this was not for me. First off was the insane amount of stress I felt with school all of the time. I have always been a very high achieving student, literally since I was like 6 years old when I was put in the gifted program. And honestly, I loved school, so it wasn't that much of a sacrifice for me. Coming to college though, as like my real life kind of started around me, school just became a job, a chore. I'm not saying that's not a normal slump that a lot of people go through. But for me, it was very clear that like school was not my top priority. So for me, once I really started having like a genuine distaste in school, I realized that it was probably time for me to look at something different that wouldn't require quite as much of a long-term commitment from me. My second major reason was I worked in a hospital and I didn't like it. There's a lot of reasons why you are required to get training and shadowing and contact hours as a pre-med student. And one of those major reasons is because you may end up just hating it. Obviously, a role as a patient care technician, those things are not going to be the same level of care you're going to be doing as a doctor, but the hospital environment overall was not something I enjoyed. I think what made it the most difficult was seeing how poorly most employees of a hospital were treated. Unless you were a doctor, you had pretty much no respect. And I just didn't really feel like that was something I was interested in. The third major reason was that I am never going to be the kind of person who chooses a career over my life. When I think about what I want my life to look like in 10 years, the lifestyle of a doctor is like literally the furthest thing from that. I want to have kids. I want to be raising a family. I want to be traveling, spending time with my parents, Hayden's parents, our siblings. There are certainly some doctor positions that are really more geared towards families, and those are amazing for the people that choose that. But for me, I wanted to be a surgeon. I wanted to give it my all. I wanted to do literally everything. When it came down to it, I was never going to pick a job over my life. My fourth and final thing, I think, is something that a lot of people can relate to, which is that I finally was able to break through the mentality of because I could, I should. I really ponder things for a long time before I verbalize them or I actually think about what it could look like in real life. I literally woke up one morning and just realized, like, plain as day, God truly gave me the answer that this was not for me. I was encouraged by so many people that just because I have the capacity and the ability to be a doctor does not mean I have the obligation to do so. I'm allowed to choose a life that allows me to be a mom, be a wife, and still really have a fulfilling career. Those things can coincide. I don't want this to come across as like I gave up so you should too. I don't feel like I gave up. I feel like I made a choice that was already placed on my heart and I just hadn't come to terms with. The amount of like stress I felt relieved from when I decided to abandon this dream, literally without words. I cannot express the way that my life has changed in a positive manner. The things that you love, the things that you pursue, the things that you dream about should not cause you such intense stress that you hate your life.
For generations, becoming a doctor was seen as the pinnacle of success, a stable, respected career dedicated to helping people. But something has gone terribly wrong. The best and brightest students, people who have dreamed of this their whole lives, are walking away. They're looking at the mountain of debt, the brutal hours, and a healthcare system that treats them like cogs in a machine, and they're deciding it's not worth it. This isn't just about personal choices. It's a warning sign about the health of our entire medical system.
So why are we turning away 55 to 60% of highly qualified applicants to medical school? Why? The Association of the American Medical College basically explains that 55 to 60% of highly qualified medical school applicants are rejected. The reason? Bottlenecking in the residency position. So follow me on this. If we increase the number of medical school seats and increase the number of trained doctors coming out of medical school, you still cannot practice medicine until you complete a residency. We do not have enough residency positions. Why don't we have enough of these medical residencies? Let's dive into this. Even though you've graduated medical school and you're a medical doctor, you cannot practice medicine until you complete a residency. The number of residencies are capped by Medicare. Medicare is the largest funder for GME, graduate medical education, or residency positions. We spend about $10 billion annually on these residency positions, and this has not been expanded since 1997, despite the desperate need for more doctors in the United States. So the Balanced Budget Act from 1997, which caps the number of residents we can have in the United States, has not been altered since 1997, and they were basically looking at 1996 needs. Since then, our population has aged, healthcare needs have skyrocketed. We simply need more doctors, and the government has not allocated funding for this. Now that we have this big, beautiful bill passed, we know that Medicare is going to be further cut. So all of us who are in teaching positions as surgeons who teach residents, we are 100% positive that we're going to see cuts to GME, to graduate medical education. So what does that mean for you? The Association of the American Medical College anticipates that we're going to be short 130,000 plus physicians. That's 55,000 primary care physicians and 77,000 plus non-primary care physicians, or us specialty physicians like me, a surgeon, by 2036. So we have a problem here in America, and not many people are talking about it or realizing it, but you will once you need someone like me, a doctor. So we really need to look at legislation so that we can increase the number of residency positions. We need money allocated to this. And quite frankly, we need our politicians to do something right for once.
I'm no longer in med school, so let's talk about it before I go to bed. I made this decision back in late December. Obviously now it's basically August. And I waited so long to say anything just because I was trying to find the right words to describe what made me make that decision. And the truth is that there's not just one singular thing that made it very easy to make it. And it's also a very personal decision, and something that I needed to sit with for a while before saying anything. And before we jump into that, I just want to say that medicine is different for everyone, their experience, and it's going to change based off of where you go to school. Like, no one's experience is the same. And anyone that has anything negative to say, all I can tell you is then you take the prerequisites, you study for 6 months and take the 8-hour exam to get in, and then you spend the thousands of dollars applying, and then you go to med school and spend 12 hours a day studying, and then we can have a conversation. And now that I've said all that, let's talk about why I made the decision to not go back to med school. So the first thing is, basically everyone knows I have an autoimmune kidney disease called IgA nephropathy, and with that, I chose to go to medical school outside of the country. I wanted to go abroad, and I was 2,300 miles away from home and my doctors. It was no longer sustainable for me to be that far away from my doctors and my medical team, and that's basically all that I'm going to elaborate on that, just because it's my health and it's already a very personal thing. And yeah. The second factor, to put it in easy terms, I guess, is I just wasn't happy, which is a very broad thing. Anyone that's ever known me for any period of my life would tell you that I've always wanted to be a doctor. Literally since I was 6 years old, that's all that I wanted, and that has never changed. So you can imagine that when I am now 24 and I was there in med school for a year and I wasn't happy and just felt like this is not for me, it was very confusing and it made me feel very stuck, and I also just I felt lost. And not to be dramatic, but it felt a little bit like an identity crisis, because this is all that I've had my eyes on my entire life. Every decision that I made, every sacrifice that I made, every academic decision, everything had this going to med school as the end goal and becoming a doctor. And, what are you supposed to do when that's no longer what you want? I was so lost. And I've always been the type of person that when I'm feeling a certain way, especially when it comes down to a decision, I sit with that for a very long time. I don't vocalize it to literally anyone. I pray about it, I think about it to myself, and then when I'm ready to say something, I say something. And so from the outside looking in, it looks like it was a spur of the moment thing, but for me, it never was. I don't know if that makes sense. Medical school is a lot. It's a lot. And it was really hard for me, making this decision, just because every goal I've ever had in my life, I've met, and I did meet my goal and I made it to medical school, but I've never, especially being in my early 20s, I've never been at a spot where I've had to make a decision withdrawing from medical school, and that decision falls completely on me. And so I was terrified of making the wrong decision. There's nobody that can make that decision for you. So I prayed for a long time, and I know in my heart, God does say that, all things work together for those that love him, and I believe that. I know that. I've seen it in my life, and I've seen it in everyone I know's life. And to say I wasn't happy, that's also a very broad thing, just because not everyone's going to be happy-go-lucky every single day, and that's not what I was describing that as. Especially in med school, you don't really have any time to yourself. You are constantly, and I mean constantly, thinking about what needs to get done, what else you need to review. There's always something to study. It is incredibly stressful. There's so much sacrifice, and it's a lot to undertake. And I think from the outside looking in, when you tell people that you're in med school, you're going to be a doctor, all people see are dollar signs. But I will be the first one to say that, in general, everyone that's in med school, but I can only speak for myself, is if I was in it for the money, I would have found something a long time ago that was less stressful, less sacrifice, less financial undertaking to begin with. And just to put that into perspective, I would have finished med school with about $650,000 in loans. And whether anyone wants to believe it or not, medicine is not what it used to be. Reimbursement rates are not the same. The way medicine operates is not the same. And I think that anyone that honestly disagrees with that hasn't had a close enough experience to medicine to truly understand. And, to put it shortly, I just wasn't in love with it anymore. And that career and pursuing becoming a doctor requires so much that it's not worth doing if you don't love it with everything in you.
I am a first-year family medicine resident, and that means that I am a practicing physician who has graduated from medical school, and I'm currently in my first year of postdoctoral training. And I want to spill all of the financial tea with receipts, meaning I'm going to give you how much I make on every paycheck, how many hours I'm working every week, and what my student loans look like. Are you ready? Number one, how much do I make? I make about $2,000 per paycheck, about $4,000 a month. Here's some screenshots of my direct deposits. We'll call it $4,070 if you want to be exact about it. Now, how much do I work? I work about 70 hours. Here's some screenshots to validate that. Sometimes I'm working closer to 80, 90. Sometimes it's 70, 75. On my light weeks, I'm working 50, 60 hours. I added up most of my weeks between January and now, and it was on average 65, which is actually pretty light. I'm pretty sure I was working more in the fall, but we'll go with what's been happening this year. So if you take 65 hours a week, multiply that by 4 weeks for a month, and then you divide my paychecks, so $4,070-ish, divided by 260 hours a month, I'm making about $15 an hour. And just as a reminder, I got my bachelor's degree in biology with a minor in chemistry that took me about 4.5 years. I then spent a year getting my master's degree in medical science. Then I went to medical school where I spent 4 years getting my doctorate in medicine. So that's 9 years of higher education. And I'm making $15 an hour. Now, let's look at what my loans look like. When you log in to the loan servicer website, mine is Nelnet, you get these fun announcements that are telling you what the Trump administration is doing to make your life harder. So that's cool. But now look at how much I owe. This is my total loan amount. And that is the interest that I have accrued. Mind you, I did not take out any loans for undergrad. I had a scholarship, I worked multiple jobs, and my parents helped me. I only took out loans for my master's degree and my doctorate. Every single time I clicked that button to accept my loan, I would think, damn, this is really scary. But I want to be a doctor, so what option do I have? Anyway, that's the life of becoming a doctor in the United States. Right now, my loan is in forbearance, and that means that I'm still accruing interest, but I'm not allowed to make any payments. And if I want to make payments, they'll be about $3,000 a month. Welcome to America.
So about a month ago, I made the hardest decision of my life, and that was to drop out of med school. Oh my God, jump scare. And it clearly wasn't an easy one to make because it has always been medicine for me. Like, I never had a plan B. It was medicine or die. And now I'm at the or die part. And I don't want to do that. Although it is a choice I made nonetheless, it was one that didn't really feel like my choice. And when I say that, I mean medicine was easy for me. And when I say easy, I mean that it came with a certain amount of ease for me. Like, because medicine's challenging, period. And everything about it is challenging, whether it's your pre-med classes, the MCAT, getting into medical school, the applications, staying in medical school, it is all extremely challenging. But it came with a certain level of ease to me. And that ease, along with my passion for it, let me know that this is what was for me. And so when these last few years became so hard in life, but also specifically in regards to medicine, and I'm not talking about challenging, but I mean hard. Like, it felt like the doors that were once wide open suddenly got so heavy. I had to question why. And I feel like it's truly because God was pushing closed on the other side of it. And that was something that was really hard for me to accept because I thought God called me to this field. Like, I was so sure that God had literally called me to this field, so why would he now change it to being a no? And I fought and I fought and I fought, but eventually I had to stop fighting. So now I'm starting over at square zero. It feels like square negative one because I'm 27 and for the first time I'm considering another career in my life that isn't what I spent the last 10 years planning for.
I could have graduated medical school today. I started med school 4 years ago and then after 6 months took a year-long leave of absence. So that means the class of students that I started with graduated this year. Today, actually. I'm so happy for everyone who graduated, but it's brought up a lot of feelings for me. It's just made me think about how much I struggled with the decision to even go to medical school in the first place. I went back and forth so much about what I wanted to do. Once I started school, I went back and forth so much about if I should take a leave or not. When I was on my leave, I went back and forth so much about if I should go back to school or not. I think that what I've learned throughout all of this is that there is no single perfect decision that you can make in your life. These big life decisions have many reasons for them and against them. I think for so long I was just wanting it to be obvious and wanting there to be one clear choice. What I've realized is we just make decisions and then we are responsible for making the best of the decisions that we made. It's not really helpful to go back and constantly question if you made the right decision or not. And I think that living with this mindset has helped me a lot with medical school. It's such a long process and it takes so much time and energy and resources that it makes a lot of sense to have doubts along the way. There is a healthy amount of doubt that you can have, especially at the beginning when you're deciding if it is the right path for you or not. But once you've made the decision, I've found it helpful to just choose every day to believe that I've made the right choice. It is so normal to have doubts about medical school. I think everyone owes it to themselves to honestly explore those doubts when they come up. But then once you've made a commitment and a choice, you also owe it to yourself not to ruminate on it too much because it's just not productive and you can just go in circles and circles and circles. Congratulations, class of 2026. My 365-day countdown begins today.
Hey everyone, my name is Vikram Mukherjee, and a year ago I got dismissed from medical school. For the past 2 years, I was sort of in and out of medical school. I faced some health problems, which I'm not going to really be getting into the details of. But needless to say, I put in a lot of work towards understanding my health and then subsequently managing it with medical school. So about a year ago, after a not so great performance on final exams, I got dismissed.
The stories are all different, but the conclusion is the same. The path to becoming a doctor in America is broken. It's a system that demands a decade of sacrifice, saddles people with $500,000 in debt, and then pays them $15 an hour to work 80-hour weeks. We heard it clearly. The number of residency spots has been capped by a law from 1997. We are actively manufacturing a doctor shortage. This isn't just a problem for them, it's a problem for all of us. When you can't find a primary care doctor or have to wait 6 months to see a specialist, this is why. The system is failing its future doctors and in turn, it's failing us all. We're already seeing the effects of a doctor shortage in many parts of the country. Have you personally had trouble getting an appointment or finding the care you need? I'm interested to hear what people are experiencing in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.